Well, Dr. Moniz, it's so great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
And look, I love history. I was telling you in the virtual green room, I love history. I love the Smithsonian, having grown up in the Mid-Atlantic in Maryland. Before we get started on talking about the American Revolution and charitable giving, do you mind just sharing a little bit about the Smithsonian, what you're doing, all the great events and features that people that come to DC can check out?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we've just opened our big exhibition on the 250th, for the 250th anniversary. It's called In Pursuit, Life, Liberty, and Happiness, and it explores how Americans have pursued these ideals. It's 250 objects with 250 stories about our history.
So definitely check it out. I mean, I'm sure people know that it's our two. Look, I'm old enough to remember the bicentennial, so that I'll leave it at that. But people should certainly check it out. And when I come to DC, I want to see it as well. All right, let's go back. I want to go. What I love about this is we get to go back in time to the founding, to our independence. But Doctor, that really helped shape our travails. Really helped shape American philanthropy, did it not?
That is absolutely correct. In fact, the American Revolution catalyzed really significant changes in philanthropic practices and ideas about who to give to as one of the impacts of the revolution.
And so let's go back to England, not virtually, of course. Great country. We were kind of they kind of had oversight, for lack of a better term, using a fiduciary term, but they had oversight of the colonies. How was philanthropy done in the UK, in England?
So before the revolution, there were strong ties between Britain, England, and then Britain after England and Scotland joined together in the Act of Union in 1707, between Britain and the British American colonies. And it is important to understand that close connection before the revolution to understand what happened after the revolution. So before the revolution, Americans engaged in local charitable activity, for instance, through their church or through different ethnic aid societies, such as the Scots Society of Boston, established in 1657. But they also participated in transatlantic philanthropic efforts and networks, often with the aim of strengthening the British Empire. And that's what changes after the revolution.
So let's fast forward. The revolution happens. We have the Declaration of Independence. We have all the great founders that many people know about, from Jefferson to Hancock, et cetera. How did this, obviously we were the rebels. We did things, or at least that's how we were defined by the British. We did things very differently. Or a different philosophical approach. We wanted our independence. How did this change? How did this evolve?
In terms of philanthropy, so
Yes.
there are a number of things that happen. One is that right after the revolution, there's a huge upsurge of Americans creating new charitable institutions, new philanthropic movements, everything from the anti-slavery movement, prison reform, new ways of giving poor relief, new charities to give poor relief, participating in a transatlantic anti-drown movement to rescue and resuscitate drowning victims, a whole range of charities. So that's one, this upsurge in founding new institutions.
So new institutions, kind of, instead of promoting the empire, I think was the paraphrasing what you said. Now we're the founders, those that seeking independence or trying or being independent, they were really looking for causes. Is that a correct statement that I made?
So what's new? There are a couple things going on. Several things going on. One is that Americans are throwing themselves into founding these organizations as a way to build new bonds among citizens of the new nation, to express their ideals, and to care for members of their community. A second is that, and this is really important, as Americans and people in Britain were coming to terms with the American Revolution, with American independence, with the breakup of the world they had all known on both sides of the Atlantic, they're rethinking transatlantic philanthropic collaboration so that instead of collaborating to promote the good of the British Empire, they start thinking about collaborating to promote universal well-being, universal goodwill. So they continue to collaborate and share ideas across the Atlantic, but they're now doing it on a new basis.
So it fostered a sense of community. How does this kind of evolve? So we have a new kind of a new approach, an evolution in philanthropy. I'll call it the U.S. version of philanthropy, for lack of a better term. How did this continue to evolve? I know we're kind of going past the founding, but how did this continue to evolve, say, through the Industrial Revolution, the Civil War, or Civil War, the Industrial Revolution, and into kind of the modern era?
So as the decades go on, Americans, like I said, continue to work with their British former colleagues, compatriots. There are a couple things that are distinctive. One is that the way that Americans talked about charitable activity and the way they expressed gratitude in it was less hierarchical. There was a more democratic sensibility about it. Although they continue to collaborate transatlantically, there's a different sensibility, and there is you don't have the kind of aristocrats here in those early years who are, I mean, ever. You don't have true aristocrats dominating in charity. And so people use a more democratic vocabulary and sensibility. Then as we move into the 19th century, into the 1820s and 30s, there's a huge upsurge in 40s of founding more new organizations during the Second Great Awakening and a period of Protestant revival. And Americans really innovate with publishing, communications, fundraising techniques, and they really grow the ability to raise money and expand their reach. And so those are the developments in the early years. Once we get to the Civil War, you see, especially in the North, a huge amount of coordination, which is facilitated by the growth of the railroads, and a new level of professionalism. So let me stop there because we've just covered a great deal of ground. See if you have questions before I continue on.
Well, no, I mean I think it's great. You know, as America evolves, it seems like the charitable giving continues to evolve. Let me ask you, Doctor, in your opinion, I like to think of Americans as being very charitable today. Maybe that is, I want to ask you, is that still the case? Have we continued the philosophy of being very charitable people, establishing organizations, trying to help others, both domestically and internationally? Have we continued that tradition that was founded during the founding?
Well, as I talk to people, as I collect objects for the philanthropy collection here at the National Museum of American History and put objects on display in our exhibition Giving in America, yes, I would say that tradition remains strong. Of course, if you read the philanthropy press, commentators in the world of philanthropy, you'll see concerns about declining giving or declining volunteering. I think we're really in a period of rethinking, reimagining, trying new things, new ways to connect. And we see this at turning points like wars, like the American Revolution or the Civil War, World War I, and periods of great economic change. We've been in a period of realignment, I think, in the world over the past decades for certain, and that often shakes out in philanthropy because people are rethinking who are part of their community, their understanding of who their community is. They're thinking about new ways of doing things financially and in the economy, and all of these things have an impact on how people practice philanthropy.
And lastly, Doctor, I could talk to you for many hours on this topic because I love history and I love philanthropy. And in fact, my mother was a director of major gifts for several local Baltimore not-for-profits. But that aside, are there lessons? So for our philanthropy friends that are watching the show that are working in foundations or small or large not-for-profits, should they go back to, I mean, certainly they should read your article, but should they go back to the founding to kind of re-energize their thinking about philanthropy and maybe how to tap back into the American psyche?
I think it's always helpful to understand how people in other times of change have reimagined their philanthropy or to understand the kind of challenges they faced and how they've met them. I don't think that we can typically draw a straightforward lesson. Okay, they were facing this problem and they did this. Let me try it in my community today, because the context has changed too dramatically. But I think understanding, being able to sort of step back and see how people have met challenges at other times can be helpful for thinking about how to work through a challenge in philanthropy.
Yeah, and look, I love that. I think you sometimes have to look backwards in order to move forward. And clearly, we had the internet. Back then, they had the telegraph or the printing press, right? I mean, there was a lot of differences, but Americans are Americans. We evolve. We are leaders in the world. Dr. Moniz, it's great to see you. Thanks for sharing giving me and the audience a history lesson. And look, congratulations on America 250. And look, everyone should go check it out. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
Well, thanks for watching. And don't forget, we're back again tomorrow morning with another great expert and another great topic. You can tune in right here Monday through Sunday at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, for all the news in one place, delivered directly to your email box. Check it out at our website.